Welcome into Surviving Paradise, the podcast that takes a sometimes serious, oftentimes humorous look at the claim by Jehovah's Witnesses that they are living in a modern-day spiritual paradise. I am your host, the vacationing Stacy Bauman, former elder, ministerial servant, and most importantly, a little guy raised as one of Jehovah's Witnesses throughout the 70s and the 80s. As I do, warning, there may be some things that trigger you here on this show, especially if you're a current Jehovah's Witness or one thinking about leaving or perhaps even left. We try to have some fun. There's sarcasm, humor, lots of tears, some episodes, but please know it is never, ever meant to offend anyone. Okay, I lied. Here I am, breaking my own rules by coming off a vacation to discuss the latest in a busy year of new light from the heavens via the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. Look, I just can't keep my mouth shut. I guess I'm exposing myself here. I have a lot of thoughts, hoping that maybe some of these crazy thoughts will help someone else. This may be brief. I don't know where this is going. I do know that I'm going back to relaxing here throughout the holidays, and I hope you're having a safe and wonderful time with those you love as well. But let's be candid. This episode simply has to happen. Jesus Christ, the leader of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, did something none of us saw coming last week. Something that has leveled the world of Jehovah's Witnesses and by extension, the entire universe. In his own version of a late Friday news dump, buried during the holidays, something he may soon change his mind on and allow. Let's all stay tuned. Jesus got the governing body on a Holy Spirit conference call and obliterated decades of one of his most absurd and hotly contested doctrines, that of all things facial hair. That's right. And I apologize in advance. I can't help but laugh. I still can't believe any of this. Facial hair has gotten the attention of the creator of the universe, as well as, we might add, his father Jehovah. The former Jewish carpenter who had a hand in writing the Mosaic Law and condemned shaving has been requiring Jehovah's Witness men to shave for almost a century now. Why, you might ask? Look, we aren't sure. But that all changed on Friday, December 15th of the year 2023, when his hand-picked king, Stephen Lett, got in front of the camera on JW Broadcasting to let us all know that the governing body is approving the very hair that grows on your face. Despite being created this way, and Jehovah undoubtedly seeing this when he was checking us out even as we were embryos, you remember King David's words, it hadn't been allowed for almost a century. And that all changed on Friday, December 15th, 2023. It has rocked the world of Jehovah's Witnesses, and might I add, many of us that decided to leave in more recent years. I know your logical mind may be thinking, wait a minute, Stacy, you crazy podcast person. An estimated 40,000 children will die today because of a lack of food or clean drinking water or even basic health care, according to the World Health Organization and its many studies. But Jesus is focused on the hair he made that sprouts on my chin. Yes. If you are logically trying to validate this, consider it, you would be correct. Despite having his own beard, focusing on saving lives and maybe resurrecting a few good people, curing disease, and let's face it, his daily fight against his own little brother, Satan that he also created, but then he went sideways. It gets confusing. The most evil person in the universe. Jesus took just a few minutes of his precious time to let the 9 guys in upstate New York, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses, know that he is suddenly and without much reason looking past physical appearance and into people's hearts, like he claimed multiple times and all along in the Gospels, to approve of men tossing their razors into the garbage can. And let me tell you, I'm taking time on vacation because I am here for it. I can't think of something more fun to take a look at or discuss. And let's face it, it is big, big news. And as always, I'm going to confess right here, I like to peer into the heavens. That's been my goal even in my time as a Jehovah's Witness. Imagine the awkward conversations going on in heaven between Chuck Taze Russell and Judge Joe Rutherford as we speak. For a Jehovah's Witness that doesn't know, it was those 2 guys that caused this whole thing. You see, Chuck was popular. He had a beard. Judge Joe, he really wanted the organization under his full control after Chuck died, and so he outlawed beers because, well, they reminded him of Chuck, and Chuck was popular. You might see a similar drama in your local junior high school. But imagine the joy felt among the clone army we have seen in Watchtower illustrations for decades. Despite the 144,000 being made up of genderless spirits, thousands of which used to be human females. No, don't turn the channel. This isn't a science fiction show. We know they still like a good beard. Now, even human males can look like them too. And has anyone considered what a shock it must be for resurrected spirit creatures, men and women, to arrive in heaven, minus their genitalia, but then be required to grow a beard as seen in Watchtower illustrations of spirit creatures? Must have been odd for the spirits formerly known as women, but don't discount how weird that must have been for someone like Judge Joe himself. I bet Chuck Russell gave him a good old wink and grin as he then saw, I gotta grow a beard as an invisible spirit creature. Look, I needed time to watch the announcement several times. And I have to tell you, I've watched it several times now over the last few days, and it is truly stunning. And I recognize we all come from different walks of life and different personalities, but for me, it is stunning. I want to take this time now to review the universe-altering announcement. No word yet on how King Stephen Lett is consistently chosen to make these types of announcements. I don't know, did he draw a short straw? I don't have any clue. But they keep marching this guy out in front of a camera. And I want to say this. With a long list of mind-numbingly insulting videos, talks, and publications, this one is near the top. This is a doozy. This is a Hall of Famer, whatever commentary you want to surround it with. That may surprise a few people considering things like, I don't know, generations or the endless money begging and grubbing and the governing body guys claiming they do Zoom meetings with Jesus. But this one is special. It is oh so special in its own right. It's important to note that Stephen Lett makes every effort to do what the governing body does best, and that is shame and somehow covertly blame their own people, while insultingly dancing around the obvious, that this has never been in the Bible, so why was it ever a rule to begin with? Oops, sorry, disclaimer. We might remember King Winder, Jeffrey Winder, one of the new guys, just reminded us that they won't be apologizing and they're never embarrassed. Thanks for the disclaimer. Even as Stephen admits that the beard ban for Jehovah's Witnesses has been completely fabricated and made up all along, millions nod their heads in excitement, with most Jehovah's Witnesses, particularly, I guess, men in this case, turning off their brains and never asking, what else have these guys made up? I'm really hopeful here. I'm very hopeful here. But back to the announcement. I want to encourage everyone to go watch the video for themselves. It's out there for the world to see. It was an announcement from heaven via the 9. Don't take my word for any of this. And don't listen to hearsay. There are amazing people commenting on this online, YouTube, the internet, podcasts, you name it. Go watch it yourself. Warning. If you're a mature, thinking adult, there is a very good chance you will feel insulted. Or if you're like me, you will laugh and laugh and laugh and come away with a long list of questions. I'm going to eventually share a few of my own here today. But this announcement was a full-scale production. They locked in studio time at the J-Dub broadcast headquarters, and it even includes a well-edited video, including some of their dramas. And with apparently zero self-awareness by these guys, the video starts with an explanation of how men in the Bible times wore beards. As if none of us knew this, but instead of showing men wearing beards in the videos, we get video clips of Jehovah's Witness actors wearing, how do I say this? Fake beards. Because guess what? When you're really self-aware like these guys, and when the video was shot, they weren't even allowed to grow real beards. Had any of these actors actually had real beards, they ironically wouldn't have been chosen to be in the video drama wearing a fake beard. Let that sink in for a few minutes. Stunning stupidity, literally proving that just days ago, Jehovah's Witness men couldn't wear beards and have privileges. Privileges that included they could wear a fake beard for a drama they want to shoot, but would have never even been chosen for the drama if they had an actual real beard. New light is shining down from the heavens. For those who hate me laughing, I'm sorry. This is so incredibly stupid. And if you need proof of this, I am big on giving credit where credit was due, and I've got to tell you, huge fan of my friend, hope he is listening, friend by digital world terms, Larchwood on Twitter has been just sending out fantastic references and photos, as has the Twitter handle, Watchtower Art Department. Huge shout outs to both of them. Go follow them on Twitter. But Larchwood blessed us with a reference that's just too good to be true. From the 2002 Zealous Proclaimers District Convention, under the aptly titled drama, Stand Firm in Troublesome Times, all about Jeremiah, actors in this drama, who got privileges of being in it, got the following instructions from the governing body. In 2002, quote, false beards should be prepared or obtained. And it goes on to say in italics so that you're sure to not miss it, and it's emphasized, quote, it is not proper for brothers to grow their own beards, end quote. Then, in 2023, announcing beards are okay is suddenly a big thing in heaven again. They roll out a drama of Jehovah's Witness men wearing fake beards because they couldn't wear real beards to be chosen for the drama, all to support Jehovah's Witness men now wearing beards. Did that make sense? Take a few minutes. Walk with me. Connect it. I just can't. I just can't. Meanwhile, millions of male Jehovah's Witnesses and female, this is mostly a guy thing, obviously, millions listening to this won't put a second thought into what they're watching. Guys with fake beards who can't have a real beard. They'll just toss their razors in the garbage can and do a happy dance because they no longer have to shave to go to the Kingdom Hall. The video presentation is something else. It goes on to talk about King David. Shaving beards was bad back in his day. In fact, it was a form of punishment. It was a form of disgrace and more. But then it inevitably gets around to the important point that most of us, if not all of us, have known since we were little boys if you were associated with Jehovah's Witnesses. And that point is this. It gets around to Jesus, the king himself, who is, I guess, making this announcement and asking the question via the video under Stephen Lett's watchful eye, did Jesus wear a beard? A question almost every male Jehovah's Witness has been asking since he hit puberty. And let me tell you something. There was a time where they openly discouraged even a mustache. If you don't believe that, please take it to the bank. Old timers, comment on this. Mustaches themselves were frowned upon, especially those really cheesy, bushy ones in the 70s. You know the ones I speak of. Men were actually not even given assembly parts. They weren't appointed as elders. I'm not kidding. That was for a mustache, but you can forget a beard. You can forget it. But as the video goes on to ask, did Jesus have a beard? The answer, of course, is yes. We've all known it's yes for, I don't know, decades and decades, going back to the 1920s of the last century. They even answer yes in the video presentation from the governing body, and well, they've apparently, as they go on to admit, always known this. They have always known that Jesus had a beard. They would just try to get you to think about something else whenever you asked about it. In fact, would you like proof? This one will be going back a few years because it predates even the now mothballed 2-green volume set of the Insight books. But for some of us that grew up during this time, we remember this book well. It's by far the biggest book in the library back in our day, the Baby Blue Aid Book. Pages 198 and 199 dispensed this kind of proof and knowledge to Jehovah's Witnesses back in the day. Quote, did Jesus, what on earth, wear a beard? Certainly, it was a custom strictly held by the Jews. There is no support for believing, contrary to biblical evidence, that Jesus was beardless, as represented in pictures found in the Roman catacombs and purported to be early Christian drawings of the likeness of Christ. Not only is the earliest drawing effaced to the point of being practically obliterated, but in this and other catacombs, there are so many pictures and inscriptions representing pagan or false religious ideas that they cease to have any authenticity as being truly Christian drawings, end quote. The Aid Book, page 198 and 199. Jesus had a beard, and how dare you suggest that he didn't, you pagan? And all those pagan pictures and archaeological stuff that we found in the Roman catacombs, you're to ignore them. But guess what? And you're going to see proof on this podcast social media site, again, thanks to great people who have posted this, mentions made afore, that didn't stop them from creating a Jesus who didn't have a beard despite being a Jewish man. Take a look back at past publications, Watchtowers, books, and more, where they made Jesus shave. They made Jesus shave his face. Big thanks again to the Twitter folks at Watchtower Art Department and Larchwood and others on Twitter for posting some of those publications. Go follow them once again, some of which are going to be used here, but several shots of Jesus with a clean shave that differentiates him, as well as other people he likes and blesses, from the evil people who had beards, including one of the criminals hanging next to him on a stake, taking his last breath, but apparently, moments before getting on the stake, had time to get a good shave in. An illustration that I have to tell you, I always enjoyed as a kid after reading the gospel accounts of Jesus' crucifixion. I mean, listen, was I the only kid thinking, well, look at that. Look at that, Mom. Jesus was standing before the Sanhedrin all night, exhausted, without water, and starving. He was blindfolded. He was tortured. He was spit on, the scriptures tell us, and they took turns slapping him around. And then, of course, as the sun came up, he was forced to carry his own torture stake. But I'll be damned. Somewhere that night, he was able to get in a fresh shave. Jesus Christ, amidst all of this momentous, most important, epic decision to ransom all of mankind, in between getting spit on and beat half to death, he was able to find time for a fresh shave, according to the Watchtower illustrations. Not even an ounce of stubble, clean shaven and ready to save the rest of mankind, all of whom were sporting beards, of course. And I often wondered, even as a kid, what did he do for shaving? How did he take the time? Why was this important before giving his life for all the rest of us? I just want to take this time, as things have changed now with this new light, to thank the Watchtower. The Watchtower, the Paradise Regained, a Paradise Restored Peach Bomber, for giving this little guy a unique look into the Jesus Christ of the 1970s. And I'll tell you what, I grew up thinking, well, I'm going to shave just like Jesus did. It's all so unbelievable. And I've covered it before, but it's staggering when you consider the damage that this organization has done to the character of Jesus Christ. I have a whole episode on it. Not only do they now want you to know that he had a beard, and apparently during the 70s he shaved a few times, but ignore that and ignore all of the Roman catacomb, ignore everything. They want you to know this as well. Or should I say, Jesus sent them a message that I'm about to share with you that's meant for the rest of us. And it's in reference to Jesus Christ and his character. When taking a look at all things beards, one has to consider what I also stumbled upon. On the website, under Bible Teachings, Bible Questions Answered section, what did Jesus look like? It looks like people are curious about this. The faithful slave gives us this, quote, might I add, that these are all under subheadings. You will find the page. Just look for it. What did Jesus look like? Under subheadings, the first one starting with the subheading body, I guess we are all curious as to Jesus' physique. They give us this, quote, I can't believe this, quote, all indications are that Jesus was physically robust. During his ministry, he traveled many miles. End quote. That's right, Jesus was buff. He was apparently buff. He walked around a lot preaching to people, and it's important for those of us to know what his body looked like. I mean, look, He's giving us very, very special information on beards. His body is of equal importance. No word yet on if he manscaped or if he, okay, I'm going to leave it alone. Under the next title of their website, in this little section under what did Jesus look like, under, how do I even, okay, facial expressions is the subheading. Facial expressions. The governing body tells us this, quote, Jesus was warm and compassionate, and his facial expressions no doubt reflected this, end quote. Well, how do they know this? No one's sure. No one's entirely sure how they know what kind of facial expressions Jesus had. We do now know that he was giving really warm, friendly facial expressions while wearing a beard. The rest of us can't. He can. But he gave warm facial expressions? How do we know this? How do we know this? And maybe this explains this new light. He wants us and Jehovah's Witnesses to give more warm facial expressions. And look, he had a beard. We should have a beard now too. Okay, but this subheading on this particular article is my favorite. It goes something like this, quote, misconception. Jesus was weak and frail. Fact. This is all a quote, folks. Please go look this up. And by the way, I need to emphasize, they say fact. And I mean fact, as in how do they know? How do they know this is a fact? That part's not given, but it's called fact. Quote, Jesus was manly in his behavior. For example, he boldly identified himself to the armed crowd that came to arrest him. Jesus must also have been physically strong to have worked as a carpenter using manual tools. End quote. You heard that correctly. Misconception, Jesus was a pansy. Fact, Jesus was manly because he was a carpenter. Jesus was manly? Dear governing body? Yeah. Did Jesus really want us to know this? Was this an important message on the website? Did he send photos or a confirmation to the 9 guys in New York? We don't know. It's just labeled as a fact. And by the way, if you're reasoning, walk along with them and me. He was a carpenter. So maybe someone just spotted Jesus in a Home Depot with some power tools in his hand. I don't know. Sort of like Tony was spotted in a liquor store with a cart full of booze. They just want us to know that Jesus was a man's man who had a beard, by the way. He had a beard. And honestly, I've got to say it. It's times like these that I still feel this awful twinge of embarrassment, just absolutely through my body, full on embarrassment that I ever believed this stuff, that I followed these guys, that I taught for them as an elder, that I crawled on stage and thought I was important, dispensing life-altering information. Ah, yes, food at the proper time on All Things Jesus, currently found on their website under What Did Jesus Look Like? Go take a peek for yourself. It took me 3 days to recover from the pain. I think I broke a rib from laughing. But after confirming that Jesus Christ, the leader of Jehovah's Witnesses, himself had a beard, something the entire planet knew all along, they go on to try to dig themselves out of a hole that identifies them without question as a man-made, high-control cult. And they do this by blaming their no-beard ban on the hippies in the 1960s. This is featured in the same Stephen Lett announcement video. We are to come away believing that it's all the Beatles' fault after all. Incidentally, that was the Jehovah's Witness urban myth answer I was given as a young guy. Whenever I asked about a beard, it was the hippies' fault. We don't want to look like those rebellious hippies, do we? They really created problems with the beards. And despite Stephen Lett's claim, in the video announcement, beards were not banned in the 1960s, folks. Beards in Jehovah's Witnesses were banned as early as the 1920s, when nary a hippie could be found. I'm talking multiple decades before Free Love, Haight-Ashbury, or Woodstock ever happened. Decades before Jimi Hendrix and Janis Joplin. And I do mean decades. But they used this opportunity in the video, courtesy of King Stephen, to get us to believe that Jehovah's Witnesses only had beards banned because of the hippies in the 1960s. And it's just unbelievable to watch these guys lie to those of us old enough that lived through it. Here's an example. From the Watchtower of 1968, May 1st, pages 286 to 288, in my all-time favorite, Questions from the Readers. We get this from the faithful slave. I'm going to try not to cry in laughter. Quote, "Today, Christian ministers, like the early Christians, are concerned with neatness and cleanness, but they strive to dress inconspicuously so that their appearance does not in any way detract from the dignity or the effectiveness of the message they bear. In recent years, in many lands, a beard or long hair on a man attracts immediate notice and may, in the minds of the majority, classify such a person undesirably with extremists or as rebels against society. God's ministers want to avoid making any impression that would take attention away from the ministry or hinder anyone from listening to the truth. They know that people are watching true Christians very critically, and that to a great extent they judge the entire congregation and the good news by the minister's appearance as a representative of the congregation." And note this, quoting, "In paradise restored on earth, it would not be out of order if men returned to wearing beards in perfect fashion like Adam in Eden." End quote. There you have it. In 68, beards made you look like a bad guy, extremists, because those hippies were some really extremists, somewhere between a good bong hit and some hot sex. They got extreme. This is chocked full of treasure that Stephen Lett doesn't mention in this video now that he's overturning the beard ban among Jehovah's Witnesses. But that's right. Witnesses, those of us old enough to remember, were taught that people don't want our literature or to join a doomsday cult in the 70s, despite telling everyone that the world was ending in 1975. Let's not go there. Because, and the only reason being, because there was hair growing on your chin. That facial hair had a dramatic effect on them deciding if they wanted to live forever in a paradise earth or not. Can you imagine? Hey, you have hair on your face. What's all this stuff about living forever? Deal breaker. I don't care if you're offering endless life. I don't want to live forever on earth. Get lost, get off my doorstep. I noticed you have hair follicles on your face. This is what Jehovah's Witnesses were taught and taught to reason. And it's just so much fun, especially in 2023 when Stephen tries to bury it all. Like this, we didn't do that. We didn't, it's never been in the Bible. That's how the video starts. That the entire reason the governing body is now doing it, he even addresses it in the video, go watch. He says it's because it's not found in the Bible. Dear Stephen, unless you forgot to read your own book that's made for you personally, it's never been in the Bible, Steve. It's never been there. The opposite's been there. But in that reference from 68, did you note the best part? Did you see it? Did you catch it? Stuff that at most Jehovah's Witnesses will just whoosh right over our head. It says there that wearing a beard was reserved as a privilege for those men that made it to paradise after Armageddon. Not sure how they wanted to compare us to Adam. Every other reference to Adam, he's a real bad guy. Not going to go into that here. But that will get to go back to wearing beards like Adam wore. Right there at the end of the reference, they literally snuck in a bit of a carrot for the fellas who are considering, do I want to get in a baptism pool or not? When they said, to quote it in the 68 question from the readers once again, quote, in paradise restored on earth, it would not be out of order if men returned to wearing beards in perfect fashion, like Adam did in Eden. Beards, folks, and facial hair are no longer reserved for paradise-dwelling Jehovah's Witness men. Something changed in heaven, and Jesus decided to throw them a bone before getting to paradise. And it all happened last Friday. And isn't that true love after all? Maybe it's just all meant as a sneak preview of what paradise will be like. We've got lots of other teachings. You get resurrected, you can never marry again, you live alone throughout all of eternity. Men and women who used to be married can't get married to each other again. They'll stare at each other for eternity. And now we get this. Paradise, I can have a beard. I might be living alone with my pet koala bear, but I'll be damned, I'll have a beard. This is the greatest thing ever. And Jesus just blew it up. You can have a beard now. I can't confirm it, but up until last week, a good beard was a bonus prize for making it into paradise, according to this reference. Good skin, pet cobras, garden burgers, and beards. And I guess you were just supposed to ignore that you've had hair follicles on your face your entire life, right? Yeah, you were supposed to ignore that. You're supposed to ignore that. Oh, they still have these references on their website. Not a moment's thought to any of it. Not any of it. Jesus didn't instruct them to take it down. Jesus didn't instruct them, hey, you might want to mothball those now. Beards are no longer reserved for paradise, folks. Yeah, new light. The video goes on to explain, that being the video announcement by Stephen Lett of a week ago, that Jehovah's Witness men had a choice in the matter that they never did. And I do mean ever. He acts like it's a conscience matter, and it always has been. He alludes to it, insinuates it. He just says, oh, well, you couldn't be elders and ministerial servants, but, we're changing that now. Folks, they never did. They never did. And it's not like you have to go into the far reaches of history to find proof for that. They didn't a week ago. 2 weeks ago. They didn't when those guys filmed a drama wearing fake beards because they couldn't have a real beard. They made the point clear throughout their entire existence, almost, the 20s. They made it all clear by portraying all worldly, all weak, all unbelievers, even demonic, violent people, by having them wear, you guessed it, beards. Beards. You couldn't be an elder, a pioneer, a servant. You couldn't carry a microphone. Such a privilege. You couldn't even go in field service in some congregations if you had a beard, if you had a soul patch or a goatee. Frankly, folks, if you had a 5 o'clock shadow. For those of us that grew up in the 80s watching Miami Vice, we all wanted to be Don Johnson. In our late teenage years, we tried to show up to field service with a nice scruff going on, and we got our butts kicked right out of the car group and back home. That's a fact. A fact. People were removed if they showed up to a meeting with a 5 o'clock shadow. They were removed from the meeting schedule, couldn't give a talk. And I mean to tell you, as a fact, I saw men asked to shave off stage at local circuit assemblies because their shave wasn't clean enough. And if they didn't do it with a razor provided off stage, they didn't give their part on the circuit assembly. Razors and white shirts were on hand at an assembly hall I was in. Fact. And just a reminder, in case you're dizzy and you're going, what in the world am I hearing? This was hair that was growing on your body. It was there all along. But it was life or death if you were a Jehovah's Witness male. And Stephen gets on this video and tries to get everyone to think otherwise. With the video ending, we're treated to Stephen Lett, who opens up the life-altering new light by saying, quote, "We are left with an intriguing question. How should we view a brother that grows a beard today?" End quote. And I have to tell you, it's at that point in the video announcement that the fun begins. Fun that should make every Jehovah's Witness sit back, take a deep breath, and deeply, deeply consider what's being said. Please turn on your brain. You've been trained to turn it off. Please fight the urge to just go along with the crowd. One of my favorite parts is how King Stephen says, the governing body has asked me to read the following announcement. And so the condescension begins. Stephen, newsflash, we're not fooled. You are the governing body, buddy. We know you're on the governing body, but that third person stuff sure adds to the drama, doesn't it? It sure makes it even more dramatic. And you'll note when you watch this, he doesn't say King Jesus Christ, head of the congregation, has asked me to read the following announcement. No, he doesn't say that at all. He says the governing body. I wonder why. Any opinion? He goes on to claim that they're being flooded from branches around the planet about allowing brothers to have hair grow on their face. Not how to support depressed, beat-up Jehovah's Witnesses, not single-parent families, not boys without fathers, people without food and water. He doesn't ask about handicapped people that need help or the elderly or even how to prepare for an upcoming genocide he's hosting. No, he wants us to believe that he is all about our chin hair. Not how do we save our neighbors. They won't listen, and I don't want you to throw a fireball at them, Stephen. No, the branches are being flooded with questions about hair. The hair Jesus gave us when he created us. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? Fascinating stuff, King Stephen. King Stephen, via video, goes on to relate that many will have questions following this announcement. Things like, why now? Why, dear governing body, are you suddenly reversing a beard ban that's been in effect for almost 100 years? He refers to fellow beard-wearing Apostle Paul. You remember him. He's warm and fuzzy, currently, by the way, in heaven, listening in on all of this. And he quotes Paul's words at 1 Corinthians 7:31, which says, quote, "The scene of this world is changing," end quote. You remember Stephen saying, look, people are going to have a lot of questions. You might have some questions. We get that. And then he says, here's the answer, quoting Paul. The scene of this world is changing? Okay. Familiar with the verse? Got it? I'm not following. Can you expound on this? Can you extrapolate? What? The world is changing? Yeah, every second. Our bodies are changing. I'm generating new cells as we speak. What does this have to do with beards and why now? He goes on to say, it's like actors in a play, and I'm not making this up, folks. You must go watch this to believe it. They're like actors in a play that change their character. They change their costumes. And look, I have no idea where he's going with this. I have no idea. I'm like, huh? What? It just all comes off as another attempt, which is what they've made a living on for over a century, of quoting a Bible writer and a verse that has nothing to do with beards and why in 2023 they're cool again, and he makes it try to fit his story, his announcement. The only question I have as he tries to wedge this comment from Corinthians into beard play is, does it apply to everything else too, Stephen? I mean, you're taking a generic comment that says the scene of this world is now changing, and I gotta tell you, as I'm going to say later on in a few minutes, you have opened quite the Pandora's box, my friend. The scene of the world is indeed changing. No one cares about beards, big guy, and they haven't for a very, very long time. But you know, there are some other things they care deeply about. Accepting that people are gay. Accepting that sisters like to wear pants. Accepting that women are very smart, oftentimes very smarter than some men who they have to suddenly obey in your organization. The scene of the world is indeed changing, Stephen. And if you're going to apply it to hair follicles on the end of my chin, I'm pretty sure it applies to even more important things, right? Or is this just in reference to hair, King Stephen? We are supposed to believe Jesus, aided by the Apostle Paul, who incidentally is sitting right next to him up there in heaven, said, hey, Jesus, remind Stephen of what I said at 1 Corinthians 7. That part about where the whole world is changing all the time, yeah, that will help everyone accept this new beard thing. He's a bright guy. He'll make it work. But in a move that, in my opinion, and that's all it is, that I am very sure that is sure to wreak havoc on this entire organization, King Stephen and the 8 guys in the room with him, that apparently not one of them said, yeah, this isn't going to go well, says something every Jehovah's Witness should hold on to with both hands and never let go of. He says something that he is sure to regret in the very near future. Something that opens a can of worms that the 9 kings in New York will spend countless hours deliberating late into the night. He thought they were getting an avalanche of letters on beards from the branches recently. They weren't, by the way. Just wait until the masses of Jehovah's Witnesses give his next statement some deeper thought. He goes on to say, and let me paraphrase, when asked how to view a Jehovah's Witness male moving forward who wants to have a beard, Jesus reminds Stephen Lett, allegedly, of John 7:24, where it says, quote, "Stop judging by outward appearance," end quote. I will repeat. Stephen gets on video and refers and applies the following verse to beards. John 7:24. Stop judging by outward appearance. And I have to tell anyone that's willing to listen to this show, I can't be more excited. I can't love the stupidity of these men more. What an inspired reminder this is, King Stephen. Do not judge people by outward appearance. Your words from the book you claim is yours. So, now that the hair that grows on my face, placed there via my DNA, is okay to grow, and we should never judge people by outward appearance, can we, or I as a Jehovah's Witness, then assume that, I don't know, tattoos are now okay? How about I'm a man and I like jewelry and I want to wear an earring. Is that okay? What about that beautiful sister who just colored her hair bright pink, sitting in the 10th row of the Kingdom Hall? How about not having to wear a necktie or a skirt? What about that sexy stud in the sister's nose or lip that really adds to how cute she is? What about that brother's long hair or that mohawk he's sporting? Ah, yes. As the Apostle John reminds us, and I have to tell you, I pictured him in heaven kind of elbowing Jesus saying, hey, Jesus, make sure you remind the 9 guys of what I said in the book I wrote too. Not just Paul, but me too. John 7:24. According to that, a Jehovah's Witness is never to judge someone based on outward appearance. Ever. King Stephen's words, caught forever on video, not mine. He goes on to continue to say, by saying rather, that dress and grooming styles, same video, same announcement about this beards, are changing, just like the world's changing, and just like we should never judge on outward appearance, and we shouldn't judge people who groom a certain way. He does throw in a little disclaimer, one that has no substance and that he'll never be able to support, where he says, quote, as long as it doesn't violate Bible principles. The same Bible and Bible principles he just reiterated, and that he's already said at the very beginning of this video, never commented on beards. He goes on to say that as long as it doesn't violate Bible principles, without ever explaining how a person who lived thousands of years ago, who most of them didn't even wear underwear, they never sprayed on deodorant or rolled it on in their pits, they don't even have a nice pair of Nikes, have anything, and I mean anything, to do with how a Jehovah's Witness is living today. In fact, Stephen, the question here is this: what principles? What principles do you even speak of? I can remember the 2 big ones King Jesus gave us: love his Father and love our neighbor. Is there something else we should be considering? When that cute sister puts a stud in her lip, or that guy doesn't wear a necktie, and I'll be damned, he has a beard. There's literally nothing from the king known as Stephen Lett. Nothing. No principles are supported when he makes this statement, because there aren't any, leaving it wide open for them to tell you what they think the Bible says about your hair, your clothes, your skin, or anything else you were born with. And I gotta ask a question. Nothing culty here, right? Nothing culty here. Jesus did a lot of this stuff when on earth. Kind of like he's reversing beard bans now in 2023. But one of my favorite highlights in this video is how he openly attempts to shame everyone and anyone for simply obeying them for nearly a century. You obeyed us, you should kind of be ashamed of yourself, but still make sure you obey us. There's a term for that. Some call it a mind. Starts with an F, ends with a K. I'll keep it clean for the ladies. He addresses those that will have a bit of a problem with this new light, or those that will say, duh, we knew beards didn't matter and that Jesus had a beard for decades. We allowed our brain cells to work without your guidance, Steve and friends, and always knew you were wrong. Oh yes. They're clearly bothered, as you can see Stephen trying to hem and haw and explain himself, by those Jehovah's Witnesses that actually do think. And he makes every effort to make anyone that has always known this feel absurd. Feel as though they need to adjust their attitude and thinking because it was their fault. They, the governing body, are the only authority, and only they get to tell you the timing and the command as to whether you get to the facial hair on your face to grow. They control your hair follicles. And the fact that you obeyed, that's one thing. The fact that some of you will be bristling and upset that you didn't have a beard and now you can't grow one, that's another thing. Only they get to tell you how the hair grows on your body. Nothing culty here, right? He scolds and insinuates anyone and everyone that has known that the beard ban was stupid for almost a century. You have to see it to believe it. He insults millions of people to their face and says they're promoting disunity and division if they go away from this epic announcement on beards and think, well, duh, we've known this all along. And says that if you have such an attitude, it's because you're someone who's in danger of moving ahead of the organization of Jehovah's Chariot and the Fine Nine in upstate New York. He literally acts as if allowing you to grow hair on your face was a gift from them to you. And now you are to shut your mouth about it. And if someone wants to do it, you're supposed to allow it and think it's cool. If you don't want to do it, that's cool too. It's a conscience matter, but we got to make the call. We got news and new light from Jehovah. Stephen Lett tries to shame those that always knew this was absurd, even after admitting that it was all fabricated and made up, and by starting this entire video announcement by saying the beard ban is not in the Bible to begin with. He now just wants you to forget all of that. He wants you to beat down those questions in your head that are thinking, my God, if beards were made up, what about blood? My God, if beards were made up, what about disfellowshipping? He wants you to turn your brain off and support his organization and add to something that he calls unity. Be unified. Don't you dare have a stray thought. And as a bit of a side point from this same epic, forever changed JW broadcasting episode, King Stephen Lett, soon to be sitting next to Jesus, I might add, shows us just how intelligent these 9 guys are. Roughly 4 minutes into the broadcast, he says that not all Jehovah's Witnesses make the same decisions on dress and grooming. Then, wild facial gestures and all, Stephen asks the following question, quote, "Should we wear a uniform or adopt a single form of dress and grooming? Of course not." End quote. I'm going to pause for a minute. Stephen just asked if they should adopt a dress code, a uniform. And he says, of course not. Intelligence on display in the chambers of the governing body. Is he aware that Jehovah's Witnesses are required to dress a certain way, to wear a suit and tie if you're a man? And I got to tell you, I got canceled once for just wearing a sport coat on the stage. Is he aware that women are required to wear dresses? Did he seriously go on camera and just make that comment? Has this guy been to a convention? Has he been to a local kingdom hall? Has he read his own literature? Does he not live at world headquarters? Did he not take part in the instructions sent to congregations on how a Jehovah's Witness should just dress if they visit Bethel? Folks, Jehovah's Witnesses are required to wear a suit or tie. Women are required to wear dresses. They do wear a uniform. And he gets up there and in condescending fashion tries to make people feel stupid for even thinking that would be a requirement. Of course not. And before you argue that, listen, if you're thinking, oh, I can wear a blue tie and I don't have to wear a red tie, please take a breath. Please. Jehovah's Witnesses live their entire lives under a strict dress code. A dress code that isn't even applied in the modern day business world, including such terms as business casual, no ties for the fellas, and women wear nice business suits. Women can wear pants if they want. It's absurd that I have to say that. There are millions of pages of publications holding Jehovah's Witnesses to a strict dress code that is every bit a form of a uniform. In fact, the word uniform is awfully close to the word Stephen's using, unity. He uses the word a lot while asking you, we don't require you to wear a uniform. What? Welcome to the overt intelligence and direction we're supposed to believe comes from the heavens of the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses. There isn't a guy in those 9 fellas that goes, this is off the rails. This is coming unhinged. These guys are not smart at all. I'm left with the conclusion that there doesn't appear to be even one guy of the 9 who does more listening than speaking and speaks up and says, wait a minute, guys, this may create a few problems, this beard thing and the way you're applying those scriptures, this might create a few problems. Not one. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Or maybe there was one. Maybe his name was Anthony Morris. Huh? How'd that turn out? Maybe this got Tony into early retirement and mothballed from the kingly court. Maybe there was one guy who said, this isn't a good idea, guys. Now he just grows tomatoes in North Carolina. It's an incredible display. This entire video announcement, top to bottom, every word of it, the fact that they're insulting people's intelligence with allowing us to have facial hair now. And in a segment I've gotten away from that I'm going to include here, because it's time to get back to chilling, some random questions from this host on all things beards. Are you ready for some random questions? Here's some thoughts, and I'm likely to have 100 more. But I flipped on the mic, and here they come. How long do you suppose it'll be before they start legislating what your beard can look like? You think that's coming? Much like the slits in skirts or open-toed shoes or, what about beards? What about the length of a beard? What about the color of a beard? What about the trim or the style? Can you have a goatee? What about a soul patch? Does that make me look too much like Lucifer, or is that one okay? What about a handlebar? Whether not my beard is thick enough, or if it just looks sloppy by their standards. Who wants to start a new light pool with me? Because Jesus didn't consider all of this apparently before making this announcement allowing us to all grow beards again. Who wants to start a new light pool where the beard itself becomes a conversation piece? You think I'm reaching? I don't think so. How about another question? Does this mean they know that there's not going to be any razors in paradise? Are they just all going in the garbage can? Because I've got some questions. Who's going to make shaving cream in paradise for the guys that don't want that beard? Who's going to do that? Or how about are they putting this whole beard thing in place, making it okay again for Jehovah's Witnesses, kind of prepping everyone for paradise? When Noah and Moses and Abraham magically reappear, and we don't want to make them feel awkward, do we? Like they're looking around at all the guys and no one has a beard and they feel just terrible about themselves. Maybe that's what's driving this. Maybe that's what Jesus is thinking. And I got to tell you, thinking minds want to know, did Judge Joe Rutherford fight growing his beard when he got to heaven? I know they're invisible, but boy, we got a lot of pictures of them wearing beards. They all look alike. How about songs? What about songs of the past? I couldn't help but think, and no, I'm not going to sing it. Does the balsam of Gilead give way to the balsams of beard oil now? Will that be a kingdom song? Don't even know if that's still in the songbook, full confession. And what about this? In my random thoughts section, wouldn't it have been something powerful by sight if old King Stephen had shown up on camera to make this announcement, I don't know, with a beard? Wouldn't that have helped the masses accept this life-altering news, this change? And who, please go ahead and leave comments, wants to start a new light pool with me on who the first governing body guy will be to grow a beard? Who will it be? I think some of them will look better with one. You know what I'm saying? Who's going to be the first one? Let's start a pool. And I couldn't help but think this. I've got a weird one for you. I don't want to leave the ladies out of this, okay? And I think it's a valid question. Does anyone want to take a stab at what will happen if the sisters start showing up to the Kingdom Hall in their uniform, non-required dresses with unshaven, hairy legs? What's gonna happen? What's next? Will they be Jezebels if they argue, well, you let the fellas have hair on their chins. I don't want to shave my legs. Is this going to open a whole new can of worms? Or should I say, new light? Talk to me, people. I've got to know. Sisters may not have to shave legs anymore. What do you think? What do you think? And finally, what year will they release the series of Awake articles, on how to trim your nether regions? And how if you touch your naughty parts for more than 3 seconds while grooming those regions, you're now unclean and need to seek the elders to, of course, confess that while shaving your balls, it felt a little too good and your conscience is killing you now. They're really getting into grooming. Hair that grows on your body. When will it happen? How to trim your naughty parts and how not to spend too much time there because you might be unclean or you might be turning gay or any number of any other things. Because Jesus is apparently concerned with the hair that grows on your body. And finally, you just have to say it. Seriously, folks, all of this fanfare, this stupid episode, all the emotions, all the anger, all that will come of this, all because of hair. Hair. Rarely do millions consider, maybe even some of us, that these guys want to even control the hair that grows on your body. Let it sink in. It's mind-numbing. And look, Stephen's answer to all of this says it all. It says it all. It exposes what these men truly are. It's proof they're a cult. It's proof. How many will see that? I don't know. I'm so hopeful. I never would have believed or guessed it might be beards that wake people up. But listening to this clown tell people they should be proud of obeying this stupidity for a century, and if you've always known this was stupid, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Don't do it now, and don't mess with the worldwide unity. Look, it's a sight to behold. It's blatant proof that Jehovah's Witnesses are a man-made cult. If you had told me years ago that beards might be a domino that gets someone to wake up from Jehovah's Witnesses, I never would have believed this. Millions of them still attend, even after being taught that generations can overlap. The 1914 crew would never leave the earth without Armageddon hitting. They're all gone. They were taught the end of the world was in 1975. So many other life-altering teachings, and they still keep going. But I got to tell you, this one might just be the nail in the coffin for many Jehovah's Witnesses. Not because they get to suddenly grow a beard, but because it blatantly exposes these guys as complete, controlling clowns, making stuff up and demanding that millions of people obey them blindly. The video alone, hosted by the worst of them when it comes to camera time, should be enough to wake anyone up. The hair that grows on your body. They want to control it. They're telling you it's okay to grow it. This is all so much bigger, in my opinion, than many are considering. I've had so much laughs over this subject. But it's bigger than that. And that's the problem with making stuff up and claiming it comes from the same guy that made outer space. Eventually, everyone will know you made it up. And anything short of just admitting you made it up just makes you look even more stupid and deceitful. But here we are. Here we are, folks. They rolled out King Stephen. They made a cool video, and they tried to convince us that our hair is a priority for Jesus in these last days, giving all of mankind the opportunity to wear a beard just before he kills a bunch of us wearing beards anyway. It makes perfect sense, doesn't it? Here, grow a beard. I'm going to kill you anyway, but have a beard. But I'll give credit where credit is due. They know. It's very clear as you watch the video and listen to him. They know this is going to be a big problem for some people. But I venture a guess that these rocket scientists didn't consider what else this opens them up to. And why I say that something as silly as beards could potentially be their undoing. And you can't believe that not one of them considered this. Things like this for Jehovah's Witnesses. Questions like, what else did they make up? Will shunning become a personal choice? Will life-saving blood be a personal choice? Will going to college be a personal choice? You might be saying, why, Stacy? Why do you say this? Folks, based on the reasoning in this video and the scriptures quoted, I say this because none of those things are found in the Bible either. By setting a precedent like this on beards, based on it not being taught in the Bible, as he says on camera, you can bet that there are more than a few people that will realize that almost nothing they teach or demand obedience to in their little organization is found in the Bible. None of it. Beards are a nothing burger. People's lives, children, and futures are substantially more important. I try really, really hard not to be insulting on this show. Look, I'm imperfect, and I'm sure I slip up. My sarcasm might twist some the wrong way. I'm just a guy and a survivor. So cut me just maybe a little bit of slack. But if you're a Jehovah's Witness listening, and you want to believe in overlapping generations, or that Jehovah watches on for centuries as his people believe in incorrect doctrines, going on for decades, or do you want to believe that only 144,000 people out of the multi-billions through all of human history are the only people that get to go to heaven? Or you want to believe that standing next to a book cart is a form of loving your neighbor? That's your right. I respect your right. I don't agree with it. I take shots at it, but that's your right. However, if you believe that Jesus Christ of the Bible is watching what is going on all over this planet at the time of this recording, death, mayhem, war, storms, disease, or that Jesus Christ of the Bible that's watching 40,000 children die today from a lack of food and clean water, or that Jesus Christ of the Bible is not dialed into protecting the children in his worldwide congregation from pedophiles, but that he has instead given all his attention to the hair follicles growing on men's cheeks, necks, and chins, then look, there really isn't anything, and I do mean anything, that I could ever tell you, that this show could ever cover, or candidly, that anyone could do to help you if you believe Jesus is concerned with beards. I'm really hoping that aside from the laughs and the absurdity of what I believe is a landmark announcement and video from the guys in New York, I really hope everyone will sit with this one for a while. With all that is going on in their organization, it was hair follicles that got their attention. It wasn't the damage to children. It wasn't even the bombings at their assembly locations. It wasn't those drowning in depression or anxiety sitting in a Kingdom Hall tonight. It was your hair. With that said, in the meantime, folks, I'm going back to some vacation time. I need it. I'm going to continue to ponder the latest developments coming from heaven on all things hair. I'll wonder what it says about God's chosen organization, that the end still isn't here, that children are still in very real danger inside Jehovah's Witnesses, but that the group Satan is said to be very worried about, the governing body, has just given our bodies permission to grow hair. And with that, my dear friends, I lied. I did an episode before the year was out while on vacation, and I'm now, well, how do I say this? I'm going to leave this hairy situation alone until year 110 of the last days, January 1st, 2024. I want to thank you all for listening. I hope that we'll rejoin again in a week or so in January of the next year. Wherever you are right now, enjoy the holidays, whatever your celebration or belief system is. Most of all, be very, very safe. And to each and every one of you, be well.